Hey guys. Tonight we slink into the shadows of medieval Europe, where being a thief wasn't glamorous. It was usually a death wish. Cobblestone streets gleam under a thin layer of rain, and the yellow flicker of torchlight dances off the walls of crumbling stone buildings. You're not strolling, you're crouching, moving low, quiet. A rat scurries across the alleyway ahead of you and disappears through a hole in a timber door, probably more confident than you are tonight. You tug your hood down. Every breath makes a little cloud. It's cold, damp, and worse, it's late. You're not supposed to be out past curfew. No one is. That alone is enough to draw suspicion. But with the pouch of someone else's dried figs under your tunic, you know you're pushing your luck. Figs. Imagine risking your neck for something as disappointing as dried figs. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You press yourself against a cool stone wall, waiting for the torchlight to pass. A town watchman grumbles to himself, something about his aching knees and missing supper, and then slowly his steps fade. You exhale barely. You've made it out of worse jams before, but you also know that this town doesn't forgive thieves. It doesn't even tolerate them. And these days, there are more thieves than ever. That's the thing no one tells you in bedtime tales. Stealing isn't just a profession here, it's a consequence. You didn't choose this path because it's exciting. You chose it because you were starving. Your sister needed shoes. Your landlord raised the rent again, and the harvest failed. You can't exactly become a blacksmith overnight. And even if you could, those jobs are for sons of men who already own a forge. Apprenticeship costs coin, and coin doesn't fall out of trees. So instead you lurk near the baker's stall eyes, scanning for a moment of distraction. You don't even want the whole pie. Just a crust. Something warm to stop the gnawing. The medieval world isn't just hard, it's brutally indifferent. If you get caught, you won't be sent to jail to reflect on your life choices. You'll be flogged, mutilated, or killed. And the crowd will cheer, as if watching a midsummer play. And that's if you're lucky. Experts still debate whether medieval towns were as lawless as folklore suggests, or if chroniclers exaggerated for effect. But one thing's clear, justice was uneven, swift, and publicly performed. You duck into a stall where the cloth seller's cart sits unattended. It's dark and smells of mildew and sheep's wool. Your fingers brush against a folded cloak. Tempting, but heavy. Harder to run with. Not tonight. You step back into the alley, keeping your back to the wall. You don't want much. Just something easy. Just enough. They'll call you a thief, but they won't know your name. You remember the boy from 3 weeks ago. They hanged him in the square. His crime, stealing 6 eggs, and he never even got to eat them. The yolks burst when they kicked over the stool, bright yellow splattering his foot. You were there. You watched. You said nothing. Scholars remain divided on how common capital punishment was for minor theft in practice. Many believe local magistrates preferred to shame or fine, but what the crowd saw was the example, fear. That's what really kept people in line. The fear of ending up like him. You rub your hands together. They're shaking. Not from the cold this time. From that gnawing uncertainty. Will tonight be the night your luck runs out? Across the square, the tallow candle flickers in the baker's window. They're still awake, probably preparing tomorrow's loaves. You crouch, then slink forward. Your bare soles make no sound. The sky is so dark you can't tell if the clouds are drifting or standing still. It's as if the heavens are holding their breath. Your breath, though, hitches when you hear it a cough. Close. A dry, rasping throat clearing. You flatten behind a cart. Then silence. The soft thump of a boot. Someone else is out here. Maybe another thief. Maybe not. This is the part no one writes in the ballads, the waiting. The gut-turning tension of nothing happening, yet everything possibly about to. You could stay still. You could bolt. But either way, your future will be decided in the next few seconds. You decide to stay low. You ease your foot backward, hoping not to kick over a bucket or crate. Your other foot slides onto something slick, leftover cabbage maybe, and you freeze. Then mercifully the wind picks up. The torchlight in the square wavers. The cough fades. And just like that, the moment passes. But it lingers, the way shadows do. You know it now. You're not a hero. You're not Robin Hood. You're just cold, tired, and hoping no one notices that the bundle in your coat isn't yours. The thing is, theft wasn't always a choice. Not really. Not for you. Not for most. It's easy for someone warm and well-fed to say stealing is immoral. But when your ribs start showing and your toes go numb in winter, morality takes a backseat to survival. Your village didn't have much to begin with. A few chickens, some turnips, and that one cow who stopped producing milk years ago but still gets fed because no one has the heart to eat her. There was no safety net, no poorhouse with soft beds or government rations. Just dirt, hunger and prayers that mostly went unanswered. And then came the taxman. You remember him plump smug riding a mule that looked better fed than your entire family. He took your father's last sack of oats, muttered something about royal levy, then trotted off like a man who'd done honest work. That was the first night your mother cried without making a sound. So when people talk about medieval thieves as if they were all shady back-alley villains in black cloaks, you want to laugh. Most of them were like you, exhausted, desperate, and unarmed, and yet the punishment never fit the motive. Scholars remain divided on how much petty theft in the Middle Ages was rooted in organized criminal activity versus sheer desperation. But let's be honest, when even bread costs more than your weekly earnings, what else are you supposed to do? Tonight you saw a boy try to steal a turnip. Just one. From a stall already overflowing. The merchant caught him, raised the alarm, and by the time you looked over, 3 men had him on the ground, kicking him. Hard. He couldn't have been older than 9. You didn't intervene. You couldn't. Because if you did, they'd turn on you too. And it would have changed nothing. That boy will be branded, or maybe his hand crushed beneath a blacksmith's hammer. They say it's justice. You wonder who they mean by they. Your own first act of theft was almost accidental. You were 12, maybe 13. There was a meat pie cooling on a sill, pork and onion. The smell like something from heaven. Your stomach made the decision. You didn't even realize your fingers had reached out. Just a blur, and then heat in your hand. And then you ran, faster than you ever had before. That was also the first time you realized how fast guilt can run behind you. It's not like you got to keep the whole thing either. Half fell apart in your hands. You shared the rest with your little brother under the floorboards. He thought you were magic. You didn't tell him where it came from. You just said lucky find. You still remember how wide his eyes got when he bit into warm meat. Whisper, one in the comments below, if this tale charms your heart. Or 2, if it sends shivers down your spine. Now you've learned the patterns. When the guards change shifts, which vendors drink too much ale at midday and nod off behind their stalls. You know which doors squeak and which windows never close fully. That's your education. No tutors, no Latin scrolls, just hunger, observation and fear. And despite everything you try to stay soft, you still pet stray dogs. You still help the old woman with her firewood when no one's looking. You try to keep whatever pieces of you that haven't gone brittle. Experts still debate whether the increase in theft during harsh winters was due more to famine or the rising population. But for those living it, does it matter? Hunger is hunger, and winter never asks questions. You pass by a hovel tonight, and from inside you hear coughing wet, deep, endless. Someone's lungs are giving up. Probably the eldest. Or the baby. And you think, what would it take to save them? A loaf, a blanket, a miracle. But miracles are in short supply. You slip into an alley and spot a satchel left beside a barrel. Someone drunk maybe, or careless. You glance both ways, then snatch it. Inside half a wheel of cheese, some dried apple, 2 silver coins. You freeze. Silver. That's not petty theft anymore. That's rope around your neck territory. You close the satchel again and retreat behind a crumbling wall. Your heart thuds. You should throw it away. But your hands won't let go. This too is how thieves are made. Not out of malice, but out of moments. Little flickers of chance that slowly become habits. You didn't want to become someone who steals. But the world didn't leave many options. And tonight, as the wind picks up and the bells toll softly in the distance, you know one thing for sure: you won't be the last. You've come to learn that not all thieves are created equal. In this world, there's an entire hierarchy among the dishonest. Some are quick-fingered artists slipping rings off noble fingers during crowded festivals. Others are loud-mouthed tricksters, distracting merchants with fake miracles while a partner quietly empties their coin pouch. And some just swipe a crust of bread and run. You fit somewhere in between, but tonight you're watching a master at work. He's older, maybe 40, ancient by your standards. Gaunt face, missing teeth, but those eyes are sharp as glass shards. You see him lean against a barrel, scratching his beard. His fingers fidget near his sleeves. And just like that, he flicks his wrist, and a coin purse vanishes from a merchant's belt like it never existed. No sound, no chase. The merchant doesn't even stop chewing his roast chicken. This man doesn't run. He strolls. You wonder how many years it took him to learn that kind of calm. You've seen others peddlers who peddle nothing. They shout about miracle powders or genuine relics of saints while slyly patting coin pouches beneath their robes. Some wear fake wounds. One guy smeared pig's blood across his chest and screamed about needing alms for surgery. The smell gave him away before the lie did. Scholars remain divided on how organized these tactics were, whether guilds of thieves actually existed, or if it was all ragtag improvisation. But clearly there were systems, informal ones, unspoken, taught hand to hand, street to street. The pickpocketing, though, that takes finesse. You tried once. A noble servant passed too close her pouch, swinging by her belt like an invitation. You moved in heart-racing fingers ready, and immediately fumbled it. She screamed. You panicked, got slapped so hard your ear rang for 3 days. That was the end of your pickpocket dreams. You still favour the snatch and sprint method. Less elegant, far louder, but it suits your nerves better. You'd rather run than lie. There's a sort of honesty in fleeing. No illusions. Tonight you hear rumours of a feast being held in the manor hall. Nobles drinking spiced wine and servants rushing about with trays of venison and stuffed pears. You wonder, could you sneak in? Maybe not for gold, but just to fill your stomach. The thought is tempting. But nobles don't play fair. Get caught in a peasant's home, you might get kicked. Get caught in a noble's estate. They'll turn it into a spectacle. You remember the last one. A beggar caught trying to lift a goblet from the steward's table. They shaved half his head, tarred the skin, and paraded him through town tied backward on a donkey. Kids threw turnip peels. Adults laughed. He lost an eye in the process. And all for a cup. But not every thief uses hands. Some use stories. There's an old woman in your quarter who tells fortunes. Everyone thinks she's mad, talks to shadows, mutters to crows. But she knows things, secrets, and she trades them for bread candles, or sometimes just someone to listen. You visited her once. She told you, your shadow's too fast for your feet. One day it'll trip you. You didn't understand then. You do now. Experts still debate whether certain mad figures in medieval society were truly mentally ill or simply outcasts using performance as survival. Either way, the lines between trickster, healer, and liar blurred easily when a crust of bread was at stake. You duck into a cellar tonight to escape the wind. There's a boy down there already. Maybe 15. Face hollow, but he smiles when he sees you. No tension. Just another rat in the walls like you. You don't speak, but he holds up a turnip and breaks it in two. Hands you half. You nod. Take it. No one calls that theft. Not when it's shared between ghosts. You lean against the wall, the cold seeping into your bones. Somewhere above a church bell tolls midnight. In another life you'd be sleeping now. In another life, maybe you'd be a blacksmith's apprentice grumbling about blisters and dreaming of your own forge. But you're not in that life. You're here chewing on raw turnip in a damp hole, grateful you weren't caught today. That's how low the bar is. Outside, the wind howls through broken shutters. The boy beside you dozes off, arms crossed like a cat curled for warmth. You keep your eyes open. It's not just the guards you're afraid of, it's the others like you. Because even among thieves, trust is a rare coin. And someone always needs a little more than they have. It's cold tonight. Colder than you've felt in weeks. The kind of cold that wraps around your bones and stays there no matter how tightly you wrap your threadbare cloak. Your toes have gone numb, and your fingers feel stiff like you're wearing gloves made of damp stone. Still you press on, hunched beneath a low wall in the market square, eyeing the baker's stall where yesterday's scraps are sometimes left out for the dogs. Tonight it's empty. Even the dogs seem to know better than to hope. You shift your weight, and the pain in your stomach returns sharp, hollow, rhythmic. Hunger has its own pulse. You'd almost laugh if it didn't hurt so much. And yet, you stay. Because the moment you step out of the shadows, the moment someone sees you, the whole game changes. In a town like this, the punishment for theft isn't just about justice. It's about theatre. People want to see you pay. They want to point and whisper. and shake their heads as if they've never stolen anything in their lives. But you remember the town magistrate's son caught slipping silver rings into his pocket at the market. He didn't get pilloried. He got a sermon and a pat on the head. That's the real joke. So here you are, still crouched, still cold, still waiting for an opportunity that probably won't come. And then you hear it, a clatter of hooves, the squeak of a wooden wheel. A vegetable cart rolling toward the square. The driver hops down, curses under his breath, and vanishes into a nearby alehouse. You blink, alone. The cart is unattended. A whole sack of onions. You don't even like onions, but tonight they're treasure. You dash forward, grab the sack by its frayed edges, and immediately hear the worst sound in the world, a shout. Thief. Your legs don't wait for your brain. You run. Through the square, down the alley, past the smithy. The sack thumps against your side, and onions spill behind you like breadcrumbs. Your feet slap stone, breath ragged. A torchlight flickers to your left. Another shout. Someone's chasing. You duck down a side path, slip through a loose fence board, and throw yourself behind a stack of crates. Silence. Only your heartbeat and the distant hum of voices. You've done it. Maybe, maybe not. But for now you breathe. Tap 3 in the comments below if this story makes you smile, or 4 if it leaves you chilled. You wait until your chest stops heaving before you dare look at what's left in the sack. 3 onions. That's it. Your whole evening risked for 3 dusty onions. You laugh, quietly, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And crying's no good when there's no one to comfort you. Experts still debate whether the high frequency of theft in market towns was caused more by poor enforcement or pure necessity. Some argue that officials turned a blind eye as long as nobles weren't affected. Others say the punishments were meant to deter, even if they rarely worked. Either way, the street stayed hungry, and so did you. You walk now, slowly, no sudden moves, no sack in hand. You left it behind, no sense holding the evidence. Just an empty look and a slight limp. That's how you blend in. You pass by the tanner's house where the stink is so strong it feels like you're walking through a wet leather glove. You always avoid it when you can. Tonight, you welcome it. No one follows a thief into that stench. Around the corner there's an old chapel, boarded windows, moss on the stone. No one's prayed there in years. But you know the cellar door doesn't lock right. You slip inside. It's warmer than outside and quiet. You sit against a pew and finally breathe. Not deep, just enough. You think of your mother. She used to hum while grinding grain. Nothing fancy, just a tune to keep rhythm. You try to remember it now, but it escapes you. Someone said once that memory is a thief too. It takes what it wants when it wants, and leaves the rest in the dark. Scholars remain divided on how much of medieval poverty was a result of poor governance versus environmental decline, crop failures, harsh winters, flooding. But when you're the one shivering in the corner of a chapel cellar, theory doesn't matter, only hunger, and the hope that tonight maybe you'll sleep without dreaming of food you can't have. You lie back. The wood beneath you creaks but holds. The faint scent of wax and mildew is oddly comforting. You curl around yourself and close your eyes. 3 onions. That's your victory. You wake before dawn. Not because you want to, but because your body won't let you stay asleep. That's the thing they never tell you about being a thief. It's not the running that wears you out. It's the waiting, the half-sleep, the always alert, one eye open kind of rest. Your back aches from the pew. Your neck feels like someone tied it in a knot. But you're alive, and more importantly, you're not in a cell. Outside, the town is still wrapped in mist. The alleys are quiet, except for a rooster somewhere, confused about whether it's too early to crow. You slip out of the old chapel through the loose cellar door hugging the walls. The last thing you need is to run into the vegetable cart driver from last night. Or worse, someone who saw you bolt into the fog with his onions. You make your way toward the edge of the town past the baker's shop, where the smell of fresh loaves pulls at your gut like a hook. You'd give anything to stand in line like a customer, to hand over a coin, take your bread and walk away upright. But coins aren't exactly falling out of your sleeves, so you settle for something else watching. The baker's apprentice leaves the back door open while hauling in firewood. Inside on the table sits a stack of day-old rolls, not guarded, not fresh, but real. Your stomach growls so loudly you press a hand to it like you're apologizing. You creep closer, feet careful on the dew-slick stones. 1 step, 2. Then someone whistles. A sharp, casual whistle like a bird, but it's not. It's a signal. You know it. You freeze. Above you from the roof comes a clatter, then laughter. Someone's already there. Another thief. And not a careful one. You duck into a barrel alcove and watch as a boy, maybe 15 drops from the roof, grabs the bread and bolts. He leaves the back door swinging. The apprentice shouts and gives chase, but the boy's gone before he reaches the street. You stay put. Smart. Because moments later a second apprentice storms out looking around. Had you moved, you'd have been caught. Sometimes the best crime is the one you don't commit. Later that morning you wind your way to the outskirts to an old storage barn long since abandoned. That's where the real lessons in thievery begin. The locks here, if you can call them that, are a joke. Rusted nails, old loops of rope doors that creak like they're trying to confess. But still, merchants stash things here. Spare tools, overstocks of grain, even broken furniture which some thieves repurpose or trade. You push the door open slowly, listening for creaks. Then you step inside. Inside is a world of quiet dust. Shafts of light break through the slats, catching floating flecks like little fireflies. The smell is musty old hay-mouldy wood mouse droppings. You move carefully, scanning the floor, the rafters, the corners. No one else here. Your fingers find a coil of rope, frayed but usable, a half-rotted bag of barley. You pocket a few handfuls, enough to boil into mush if you can find water. Then you pause. You see something curious, a wooden chest with a lock far sturdier than anything else in this barn. Not made for thieves like you, clearly. You run your fingers over the iron clasp. Too thick to break, too well fit to slip. Scholars still debate whether medieval locks were primarily deterrents or genuine security measures. Some were ingeniously complex, multi-levered with false keyholes and internal traps. Others, just to stick through a loop. This one is somewhere in between. You tap the lock. Solid. You won't be getting in. But maybe someone else already has. You notice the dust around the chest has been disturbed. A partial boot print, the faintest drag of a rope. Whoever owns this chest visits often or isn't the only one watching it. You decide not to linger. You've survived this long by knowing when to be curious and when to walk away. As you slip back outside, a cold wind greets you. The sky is brightening, and the town is stirring. You duck behind a hedge as a cart rolls by barrels, sloshing with something that smells like fish, guts, and regret. You wonder what life would be like with a key. Not metaphorically, a real key. One that opens something yours. A home, a chest, a door. Instead, you live in a world of doors that stay shut and only open when no one's looking. You pass by a gate where a noble's house looms behind high hedges. A woman in furs steps out her boots, spotless her hands gloved in white. She glances your way. Her eyes say danger, but her expression says disgust. You lower your head and shuffle on. It's funny. You can blend in among shadows, outrun guards, slip through cracks in the system. But one glance from someone like her can still make you feel invisible and exposed at the same time. You move on. You don't always run. Sometimes you vanish. Not into smoke or darkness or some magician's illusion, but into the forgotten spaces of the medieval world. The places no one wants to look. The crawl spaces, the sewers, the roof rafters, the hollowed stables where even rats hesitate. That's where you rest. That's where you hide. Tonight you find yourself at the edge of the village, where the woods begin to reclaim the stone. A half-collapsed barn leans awkwardly into a gnarled elm, its roof sunk on one side like a drunk, too tired to argue with gravity. But it'll do. You slip inside and the smell hits you. Damp hay, old manure mold, sharp, earthy, sour. But better that than cold stone or the snapping teeth of a town dog. You nudge aside a broken rake and settle into a hay pile, brittle but dry. You're not alone. There's movement in the corner. You go still. Your hand, out of habit, finds the little bone-handled knife you keep wrapped in cloth beneath your belt. Not much use in a fight, but enough to show you have something. Easier voice rasps from the shadows. Not here for trouble. You squint. A face materializes, gaunt, scarred nose broken more than once. A fellow ghost. The man nods toward the hay. Quiet's all I want. You nod back. In this life, no one asks names, just intentions. You lie in silence for a while, watching the beams creak in the wind. Then he speaks again. Used to be a butcher's boy, he says. Learned how to carve meat before I knew how to write my name. Father died. Master took the shop. I got the street. That's all he says. That's all he needs to. Experts still debate whether medieval society offered enough upward mobility through trade apprenticeships, or if most poor boys like him simply slipped through the cracks when misfortune struck. But clearly cracks there were, and wide ones at that. Later you leave the barn just before sunrise. The other man is still sleeping, his arms wrapped around his knees. You take nothing from him. You understand that unspoken law among the truly desperate don't steal from ghosts like you. You follow a path toward the river, hoping to wash your hands and fill your flask. A light mist clings to the banks, and the water is so cold it stings. You cup its sip slowly, feeling it splash over your wrists like a blessing you didn't ask for. Then you hear them shouts, angry, close. You crouch low among the reeds and peek through. A group of townsfolk marches by dragging a young man between them. His hair is matted, and one of his eyes is swelling shut. His tunic is torn. The butcher's son, someone mutters. Your stomach clenches. They're saying he was caught with a bolt of dyed wool. Fancy stuff. Property of a noble merchant. No one believes he bought it. They'll take him to the square. There'll be no trial. Not really. Just accusations and spectacle. Maybe a branding. Maybe worse. You want to look away. But you don't. Not because you're brave. Because you've seen this story before. You wait until they're gone. Then you move again. You pass into the tangle of woodland that surrounds the town's edge. A place you know well. Roots like twisted fingers. Crows calling from branches like gossiping old women. This is your second home in a way. You know where someone once built a hunter's lean-to. You know which hollow trees hold dry moss for a fire. And most importantly, you know the trails no patrol will bother to follow. But it's not just guards you hide from anymore. There are others like you out here. Fugitives, deserters, outlaws. Not all of them are friendly. Some would slit your throat for the crust in your pocket. Others might simply nod and share a smoke. The trick is reading their eyes. Scholars remain divided on how much support or threat medieval outlaws posed to rural communities. Some say they were welcomed by peasants as folk heroes. Others believe they were feared more than tacksmen. From your place in the underbrush, watching a stranger skin, a squirrel with unsettling precision, you're leaning toward the second theory. You retreat, back to town. Back through the mud-slick trail and over the collapsed wall, where the stonemason never finished repairs. That's the thing about hiding, you always come back. You always have to. You tuck your knife away, adjust your hood, and slide into a group of merchants wheeling carts. You walk with them, eyes low, matching their pace. Just another shadow among many. The guards at the gate barely glance. They're half asleep, focused on their own shivers. You slip past them unnoticed. You're home. The square is already busy by mid-morning. Town criers are shouting announcements with theatrical flair, their voices echoing against the cold stone buildings like birds squabbling over crumbs. You linger at the edge, half hidden by the overhang of a potter's stall. It's not the goods you're interested in. It's the names. By order of the bailiff, and under the seal of Lord Everwin, the crier booms, the following persons stand accused of unlawful acts within the town walls. You know what comes next. Theft. Always theft. Sometimes real, sometimes invented. The names come out slowly, stretched for drama. The crowd eats it up like porridge. One Thomas of Dunsmore for the lifting of a merchant's purse. One Alice Miller for the theft of 2 bolts of linen. One unknown male seen fleeing with vegetables from the square cart. That one stings. That's you. Probably. Or someone like you. Either way you feel it. You shrink back further. Around you a dozen others barely react. Some mutter. A few chuckle. One spits. This is theatre. Cheap, brutal and daily. It's not about law, it's about the idea of law. About showing the crowd that order exists even when it clearly doesn't. The punishment list follows. Stocks pillory lashings. One boy, just a boy, is sentenced to a day in the pillory for stealing goose fat. Experts still debate whether public punishment was more about deterrence or spectacle. Either way, you've never seen it work. If it did, no one would be out here tonight. The crier folds his parchment boughs dramatically and steps down from the wooden platform. The crowd disperses slowly as if reluctant to return to the cold and their chores. Some still point toward the accused as they're led to the town hall. Their hands are bound, but their heads are held high, or at least not yet bowed. You know what comes next. The procession. This isn't an execution. Not yet. But it may as well be. The townspeople treat it like a holiday. A parade of shame. A living cautionary tale. They march the accused through the streets led by a man with a drum and another with a bell. You stay behind a cart of apples watching from the shadows. There's Thomas Mudd on his face, limping slightly. There's Alice, her apron torn, eyes dry but blazing, and the boy with the goose fat tied at the wrists, his lip trembling. Your breath hitches. They stop near the stocks where the wooden beams sit, waiting, stained with rain and old spit. You know what comes next, and you hate yourself for watching. But you do. They fit the boy's head and hands into the pillory. It creaks shut. The crowd jeers. One man throws a turnip, not rotten, just soft. It hits the wood with a wet thunk. You want to scream. You don't. You turn away. Behind you, two old women gossip. Said he stole for his mother, one says. She should be punished too, the other replies, for raising a thief. You walk faster. Whispers follow you. Not because they know you did anything. No, you're just another ragged soul in a town bursting with them. But the guilt walks beside you like a second shadow. You duck into the alley behind the candlemaker's shop, where the tallow smell is strong enough to burn the back of your throat. You sit on a crate and put your head in your hands. And then you remember something. A boy 2 winters ago. Same pillory, same cold. He didn't cry either. You threw him a crust of bread when the guards weren't looking. He caught it, smiled and mouthed. Thank you. You never saw him again. Maybe he got out. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's you now, slipping between stalls, avoiding eye contact, praying every night, not for salvation, but for the guards' attention to be elsewhere. Scholars remain divided on the long-term effects of public shaming punishments. Some argue they fostered community, unity through shared values. Others say they bred fear and cruelty. You're not a scholar, but you've seen the truth. Shame doesn't heal, it hardens. You get up brushing straw and grime from your cloak. The day is only halfway done, and your stomach's already begun its low, pitiful chant again. As you move back into the alleys, you notice a coin glinting beneath a crate. Just one. Probably dropped during the morning rush. You look around, no one nearby. You snatch it quick as a blink. Tuck it into your tunic. It's not enough for a full meal, but maybe a handful of dried peas. Maybe a candle stub. Maybe just the idea of hope. Your pace quickens, and as you walk, you whisper softly, dryly, to no one but yourself. One for the thief, none for the priest. And the streets don't argue. The pillory creaks behind you as you move down the lane, its wooden jaws still clamped around that poor boy's neck. You can hear the crowd slowly losing interest, some peeling away to buy sausages, others drifting off to gawk at a travelling juggler with a crooked hat. A thief's suffering is only entertaining for so long. Eventually, something shinier takes their eyes. But not everyone leaves. You turn the corner and see a woman still standing near the square, middle-aged, plain cloak, heavy boots. She holds a small sack of beans but hasn't moved. Her eyes are fixed on the boy in the stocks. You can tell from her posture, stiff but silent, that she's trying not to cry. That must be his mother. You hesitate. You want to walk away. You should. But something anchors your feet. And then she does something small, but unbearable. She lifts the sack of beans like she means to offer it to him. Then she thinks better of it, lowers her hand, and simply walks away. You've never seen anything so loud, done so quietly. Later that day, you find yourself watching the pillory again. Not on purpose. You were cutting through a side street, hoping to barter the small coin you found for a heel of cheese, when the sound of jeering voices brought you back. Now, there are 2 people locked in the stocks. The boy's still there, eyes half closed, and beside him, Alice, the linen thief. She's older than you, with bruises on her wrists and a look that could shatter windows. You didn't know her before today. Now you'll never forget her. A group of boys approach. The worst kind, smug, rich enough to be cruel without consequence. One lobs a rotten apple at Alice's head. It hits her square on the cheek, and the others laugh. You expect her to flinch. She doesn't. She grins. You throw like your mother kisses, she says. Her voice is hoarse but sharp. The boys stop laughing. One mutters something and walks off. The others follow. You blink. You don't even realize you're smiling. That's the thing about the stocks. It's not always the physical pain. Sometimes it's the humiliation, the flies, the stink, the stiffness that won't go away. But worse than all of that, knowing people came to watch, that their entertainment is your discomfort. And yet somehow, people like Alice find a way to spit back. Scholars remain divided on how effective public stocks and pillories were at preventing crime. Some argue they humiliated wrongdoers into conformity. Others claim they simply created folk heroes out of the bold and the broken. Today you're inclined to believe the latter. You leave before Alice sees you. She doesn't need your pity. She's already winning in a strange, stubborn way. You pass a butcher's stall and spot a hunk of fat wrapped in cloth meant for rendering, not eating. But fat is fat. Calories are calories. You wait until the butcher's boy is distracted, then slide it off the table and vanish into the crowd. You don't run. Running is for amateurs. You just disappear. Later in a shaded alley, you gnaw on the thing like a starving wolf. It tastes awful, like smoke and old ash, and the corner of a pig that no one wanted, but it fills the hollow for a while. While you chew, you spot movement above. A window opens. A pair of legs dangle out, followed by a rope. Someone else is escaping. You recognize him barely. His hair's matted and he's got a limp, but it's Thomas, the man accused of stealing the merchant's purse. The one whose name the town crier bellowed like a town anthem. He's getting out. Somehow. You watch silent, as he lowers himself down the side of the magistrate's hall. A dog barks, a baby cries nearby, but no alarm is raised. He hits the ground, hard rolls, and limps into the alley across from you. Your eyes meet for a moment. Then he's gone. Experts still debate whether medieval jails were used for punishment or simply for holding the accused until sentencing. Most agree no one stayed long, and conditions were horrific. Rats lice rotting food and barely a straw mat. If you got out even with a limp, you were lucky, and you don't believe in luck. Not really. But tonight, maybe you'll borrow a little. You curl up under an abandoned cart, using a threadbare cloak as a blanket. Your stomach is quiet. The fat did its job. Above you, the sky fades from gold to steel grey. You trace the rafters of the cart with your eyes, watching a spider stitch its web, one thread at a time, patient, invisible to most. You think that's how you survive here. Not by being strong, not even by being fast, but by being just visible enough to matter and just invisible enough to endure. The square is quiet now. The stocks stand empty. For tonight, tomorrow someone else will fill them. It's easy to forget that not all thieves look the same. Especially if you've only ever imagined them from old stories. Hooded men, cloaked in darkness, slipping silently through markets. But today, as you crouch near the laundry lines behind a tenement, you see a reminder not all thieves are men. She moves with practiced calm. Skirt tucked hair, bound tight, face clean. You'd mistake her for a midwife or a washerwoman, but she isn't carrying herbs or linens. She's got a bundle of salted meat tucked under her apron, and you'd bet your last coin it didn't come from her pantry. You watch as she disappears into a side door, barely glancing behind her. No panic, no pause. Just done. Efficient. Like this isn't her first theft and probably not her 10th. It's easy to forget, especially in the songs and tavern tales, that women stole too. Maybe even more cleverly, because no one expects them to, and when they're caught, oh, the spectacle is worse. Scholars remain divided on whether women thieves were punished more harshly due to their gender, or simply because society expected them to be morally superior. You've seen both the pity when she cries, the fury when she doesn't. You remember one woman, Marin they called her, a mother of 3. Took a bolt of wool during a market distraction. She didn't run. She walked home with it in her arms like it was hers. The guards found her, and the punishment came fast. They shaved her head in the square. That doesn't sound so bad until you realize what it meant. Baldness for a woman wasn't just humiliation. It marked her. It screamed criminal in a way no branding iron could. After that, no one hired her. No one sold to her. Even her landlord doubled the rent, then threw her out when she couldn't pay. Her children disappeared into the orphanage by the following winter. You heard she died in the woods trying to keep warm with scraps of hay stolen from a stable. So when you see this woman today, clever, quiet, fast, you hope she makes it. You wait a few minutes after she leaves, then check the spot. Nothing left. Not even a hint of the salt that must have clung to the meat. You chuckle dryly. Can't fault her. You'd have done the same. You continue walking, blending into a group of fishmongers, unloading salted herring from barrels. The stench is enough to keep most noses turned the other way. which makes it a good cover. You slip between the barrels and notice a crate cracked open. Inside fish wrapped in linen and leaking brine. You don't take a whole fish. You know better. You take the tail end of one, just enough to suck the salt and maybe chew some sinew. It's disgusting, but it makes your teeth feel like you're still alive. You find a quiet step beside a disused bakery oven, the stones still warm from yesterday's fires. You sit there, letting the heat seep into your back as you chew the fishtail bones and all. You think about the women you've known in your life. Your mother, your sister, Marin Alice, in the pillory, the woman from today. How many of them took something not because they wanted to, but because no one else would give it? Experts still debate whether the rise in female criminality during economic downturns reflected desperation or newfound independence. But when you're this close to the edge, independence is a luxury. Desperation, though, that's free and plentiful. From the shadows you spot two guards pacing. They aren't looking for anyone in particular, but their hands twitch toward their clubs just the same. You stay still. You're good at that now, being still, being quiet, being the background noise in someone else's day. One of the guards jokes about catching that cow Alice again and laughs. The other one shrugs and mutters something about how they should have just drowned her. You grip the stone step tighter. Then they're gone. You walk again, legs stiff, breath shallow, and as you turn a corner you see her, the woman from earlier, standing by a brick wall, sharing the salted meat with two little girls and an older man who's coughing something awful. She didn't steal for herself. Of course she didn't. You watch for just a moment more. The little ones eat like they haven't in days. The man smiles through the coughing, and the woman, her expression doesn't change. She just checks the street, then disappears again, a shadow with purpose. You don't follow her. Some ghosts deserve their privacy. There's an old rule you've learned the hard way. It's not always the guards you should fear. Sometimes it's the neighbor with the sharp ears and a sharper tongue. The informant. The one who watches the alleys from behind, warped shutters, and knows exactly who stole what from whom because they've already written your name on a piece of parchment and delivered it to the town hall. Today you pass by a tavern, the kind with sticky benches and watered-down ale, and you catch a conversation drifting through the half-open window. Two men hunched over mugs, whispering fast and low. Heard, she told them. About the stable job, one says. Aye. Got a coin for it too. Guard paid her straight out. Like she's one of them. You keep walking, but slower. You've heard of her, Agnes, the fishmonger's widow. Used to be kind, gave scraps to children. But lately, she's been noticing things, saying things, earning coin where she can. You don't blame her. You really don't. But that doesn't mean you trust her. You've seen it before. People who once shared bread now share secrets. Fear does that. Hunger sharpens the eyes and dulls the soul. Scholars remain divided on the extent to which informants were used systematically in medieval towns. Some records suggest entire neighborhoods were riddled with low-level spies, while others portray these tattlers as isolated bitter figures trading loyalty for a crust. What you know is this: nothing spreads faster than suspicion. And the moment someone even thinks you've stolen something, it doesn't matter if it's true. It's as if they're itching for someone to blame someone worse off than they are. A few months ago, a boy named Leon was accused of stealing a silver brooch. No one had seen him do it. There was no proof. But the merchant swore it was missing, and Leon had been seen loitering nearby. That was enough. They didn't even give him the pillory. He was dragged into the guardhouse and never came out again. You still walk past that door sometimes, wondering what excuse they whispered to themselves that night. You slip into the back of the tavern now, not through the front like a paying customer, but through a crooked door near the barrels. You crouch behind a stack of crates, just long enough to hear a little more. Said she saw him near the dyer's cart, a voice says. Swore she did. Right before it went missing. Another voice grunts. Probably lying. But the guards don't care. They just want someone to haul in. You back out before they spot you. Your breath catches in your throat. This is the real danger. Not torches and pitchforks, not stocks and shackles, but words. Words whispered in corners. Words turned into weapons. You don't need to be guilty anymore. You just need to be named. Later you pass by Agnes's stall. Her fish are lined up in neat rows, eyes clouded, scales dull in the grey light. She's hunched, lips pursed, sleeves rolled. You watch her for a moment, then you notice something: she's not alone. Behind the stall stands a boy, young, pale, his face blotched with what might be fever. He's coughing into his elbow, and every few minutes, Agnes glances at him with a look you've seen before, one that says, "I'd sell my soul if it meant you'd eat." And maybe she did. You move on. That night, as you settle behind a crumbling chimney on a rooftop, you think about how fragile all this is, how easily survival turns you into a risk, how quickly kindness turns cold when someone knocks at your door with a bribe and a question. Experts still debate whether the rise of informants in late medieval towns was born from civic order or sheer desperation. But you don't need an expert. You've felt it. The way silence becomes currency. The way people pretend not to see, or pretend to see too much, depending on which will buy them a warm supper. You stare up at the stars barely visible behind the soot and smoke of the town. Somewhere nearby, someone's calling a child inside. Somewhere else, a pot is boiling. Laughter drifts across a roof. You can't help but think, what if they just gave the bread away? What if everyone had enough? But that's not this world. This world has fishmongers who name names guards, who don't ask questions, and thieves like you who learn to move in the gaps between shadows and sound. You close your eyes and whisper the same words you've used every night this year. Not me, not tonight. And for now, it's true. The alleyways twist like veins behind the main road, some so narrow you have to turn sideways to pass. You know them better than the streets themselves. Every dip in the stones, every loose shutter, every crate that's hollow beneath the lid. But the guards, they're learning too. You've noticed them changing tactics. Fewer lanterns, quieter steps, more dogs. Tonight you hear them before you see them. The jingle of chainmail, the muffled scuff of leather boots, and then voices. Two of them, one with a nasal rasp, the other with that self-important tone you've come to loathe. They say the thief's been using this stretch near the dye works, the raspy one says. Then they're fools. The other replies. No one smart hides near that smell. You press yourself against the damp wall behind a stack of broken crates, barely breathing. The dye works always reek like vinegar and crushed bark and something worse. But that's why you do hide here. No one wants to follow their nose into a headache. One of the guards coughs. You hear him spit. Then the sound of something being kicked. There's nothing here but piss and splinters, he mutters. Then silence. Footsteps retreat. The patrol moves on. You wait a full minute before shifting, careful not to let the crates rattle. Your legs are cramping from holding still, but it's worth it. You're getting better at this. Not faster, not braver, just quieter. Scholars remain divided on how well-trained medieval guards actually were. Some argue they were barely better than thugs with official tabards. Others say town constables developed into early forms of civic policing. You think they're just men with clubs and quotas. Some mean well. Others enjoy the chase too much. You've met both. One guard years ago caught you stealing eggs. You dropped one, just one, and it cracked against the cobblestone. He picked you up by the collar, slapped you once and said, "Don't be stupid enough to get caught next time." He wasn't wrong. Another time a guard cornered you in a stable. You were maybe 15. You'd stolen a blanket, just a blanket from a travelling merchant's cart. The guard grinned like it was a game. He made you beg, then made you give it back, then hit you anyway, just so he could say he did something. That was the first time you really hated. Tonight, you keep low sliding between a tannery and a wall, so stained it looks like it's bleeding. The tanner's gone home. The door is bolted, but the chimney still glows faintly. Heat at least. You squat near it, letting the warmth settle over your hands. They're cracked again, splitting at the knuckles. You wrap your cloak tighter. Suddenly a whistle cuts through the dark. Short, 2 tones. A signal. Your head snaps up. You know that whistle. It's not a patrol. It's one of the gangs. There are small ones in the town, loose groups of cut purses and runners. Not organized like the stories say, but close enough to be dangerous. Some protect their turf. Some just want numbers. Most don't care about names. You've avoided them. Too many rules. Too many loyalties you can't afford. But now, that whistle was close. You back away from the chimney and slip down the alley. A boy appears ahead of you, skinny, wiry, no older than 10. His eyes shine like polished glass. He grins. "You on their turf," he says. "You gotta pay." You freeze. He's small, sure, but small doesn't mean weak. Not when there are older ones nearby waiting for the cue. "I didn't take anything you say carefully." "Doesn't matter," he chirps. "Breath in here costs." You got a crust, a coin, boots. You look down. Your boots are falling apart. Still, they're yours. You don't speak. Then someone behind you says, "Leave it, Toll. They're not worth it." You turn slowly. A girl steps forward from the shadows. Maybe 16, but her voice is solid, boss-like. She nods at you. "Next time, don't use our chimney. That's our warmth." You nod. You don't run. You just step away backwards, hands open. They don't follow. Experts still debate whether medieval street gangs functioned like mini-guilds or were simply survival collectives. You've seen signs of both. That girl. She ran that crew. Not with fists, but with rules. Back in the empty stretch behind the millers, you exhale. The air's colder here, but the danger is gone. For now. You find a crate with one side missing and crawl inside. It's damp, but enclosed. You rest your head on your arms. Close your eyes. You whisper to yourself, just to hear a voice. Not caught, not cornered, not gone, not yet. They come for you just before dawn. You're not asleep, not really. You rarely are. Your eyes are closed and you're breathing steady, but your mind is doing that thing it always does, scanning, listening, waiting. So, when you hear the boots, the fast, purposeful kind, you don't hesitate. You're up and moving before your body catches up. Out of the crate through the alley across the ditch behind the mill. You don't stop to think. Thinking slows you down. But this time they're faster. A shout rings out behind you. Then the whump of feet slamming into mud. Someone's chasing. Two someones. One of them yells your name, your real one. Not a good sign. You dart between stalls, leap over a trough, and try to lose them in the steam rising from the baker's chimney. It works for a moment until you feel a hand clamp around your shoulder and another slam into your side. You go down hard, mud in your mouth, a knee on your spine. "Gotcha," someone hisses triumphant. Then, "Where's the purse?" "What purse?" you gasp, breathless. They flip you over. It's not just two guards, it's three. One of them you recognize from the square last week. He's the quiet one, dangerous type. The tall one shoves your shoulder. "You're the one who ran from the onion cart, I thought you got clever." "I ran because someone was chasing me, you lie." "I didn't steal anything," he smirks. "Of course not, and I'm a bishop." They drag you up by the arms and haul you down the street. People glance your way, some bored, some smug, none surprised. This is just another morning. You try to speak. You've got the wrong. But your words are cut off by a backhand. Not hard, but humiliating. It's not about hurting you. It's about showing who's in charge. Scholars remain divided on how frequently medieval arrests led to due process. Some believe local officials were concerned with maintaining fairness. Others point to records that show confessions beaten out of suspects truth optional. You're starting to understand which side of the debate you fall on. They bring you to a storage room near the guardhouse, not even a cell. Just a stone-walled space with a bench and a bucket. They shove you down. Then they leave. The door slams. You hear the latch click. You wait. The light through the slats slowly changes from blue to grey. Your wrists ache. There's a sour smell in the corner, old sweat and something worse. You sit there for what feels like hours. Then the door opens. He steps in alone, the quiet one. He doesn't say anything at first, just walks around you slow like he's reading a scroll. Then, "We know you took it." "I didn't." He sighs loud and long like he's already tired of this game. You know what comes next then. Your heart skips. "I didn't take anything," you repeat. He pulls a small knife from his belt. Not a weapon. A tool. It glints in the weak light. "We don't need proof," he says almost gently. "Just confession. Makes things tidy. You're not brave. You're not made of stone. But you've learned that pain when expected is almost bearable." He moves closer. "Just say you did it. Say you took the purse. That's all." You look at the knife. At his boots. At the crack in the wall beside the bucket. And for the first time in a while, your voice is steady. "Number." He pauses. You can tell he wasn't expecting that. Then he crouches in front of you so close you can smell the sourness of his breath. "We'll get what we want," he whispers. Everyone talks eventually. Scholars remain divided on whether medieval confessions under duress were ever considered valid by the court. But let's be honest, when the judge knows the torturer personally who's arguing, you brace yourself. But he doesn't strike. Not yet. He just stands, says, "We'll talk again tomorrow," and walks out. You're left in silence. You curl onto your side hands, shaking, stomach twisted. You don't know how long you'll be here. A day, a week. But the worst part isn't the cold stone or the pain in your ribs. It's knowing this, you didn't even steal the purse. And it still might not matter. The cell door creaks open again, sometime in the afternoon. Though time has begun to feel elastic in here. You've counted cracks in the wall, followed a trail of ants for an hour, and hummed old songs just to hear something other than your own heartbeat. But now the latch lifts and you sit up bracing yourself. It's not the quiet guard this time. It's someone else. A woman cloaked in grey face, half hidden by a linen hood. She doesn't wear armour, but there's a weight to her presence that makes you wary. She walks in like she owns the room. You watch her carefully. "I'm told you won't confess," she says, voice low and clear. Not unkind, but not warm either. "I didn't steal anything," you answer, careful to keep your tone flat. She nods as if she expected that. Then she kneels to your eye level. "Tell me," she says, "do you know Eleanor Blackthorne?" You blink. That's not what you were expecting. She was caught 3 weeks ago. Had a coin pouch, same as your accused. Claimed she was innocent. Said it was planted on her. You say nothing. She also had a crooked finger on her right hand. Know what that means? You shake your head. It means she was marked. A thief from way back. Broke that finger in the pillory when she was 15. Never healed right. You still don't speak. She was burned. Not for stealing. For witchcraft. Your eyes widen. There was no trial. They said if she stole, she must have done other things too. Curses. Hexes. Danced with shadows. One accusation opened the door for the rest. You swallow. She straightens up. Do you understand? You nod. Slowly. And that's when it hits you, they're not just trying to get a confession. They're deciding what you are. Are you a thief? Or are you something darker? Because in this world, the line between petty crime and heresy is thinner than parchment. And if they push you over it, no amount of truth will pull you back. Scholars remain divided on how often theft and witchcraft were conflated in medieval accusations. Some believe the overlap was rare and sensationalized. Others argue that the fear of disorder, especially among women, led to accusations leaping from material theft to moral panic. You've seen it before. You remember a woman, Elizabeth, lived near the edge of town, quiet, kept bees, sold honey and herbs. Nothing strange. But then someone claimed her herbs made their husband too sleepy, said it was a spell. Days later, someone else said they saw her feeding a blackbird from her palm, and just like that, she was a witch. You saw her burn too. You were maybe 11. You didn't understand it then. Not really, but you do now. Because now you're in a cell, and now you are the one people whisper about. You're the one whose face has been seen too often near too many stalls. You're the shadow in the crowd. You're a perfect target. The woman in grey steps back. Think carefully before tomorrow. Once they ask about magic, it won't matter what you say, only what they believe. She leaves. You sit in the dim light, heart racing. You reach for your own hands, inspecting your fingers like they might give you away. Are they crooked? Scarred, marked? They're just hands. Dirty. Cold. But now you're not sure that's enough. Outside, someone walks by the door. You hear a whisper. Witch. You press your hands to your ears, but it doesn't help. The word's already in your head. Witch. Not thief. Not vagrant. Witch. That's worse. You can explain away hunger. You can plead for mercy on stolen food. But witchcraft, that's something else. That's fear dressed up in robes and superstition. That's a charge with no weight limit. They can pile on whatever they want until you collapse under it. You breathe through your nose. Slow. Steady. You didn't steal the purse. You didn't curse anyone. You don't know magic. But none of that matters anymore. The wind whistles through a gap in the stone, and you wonder just for a second if maybe silence would have been the better crime. The next morning brings fog, thick, milky, clinging to everything, like the town has been dipped in a bowl of soup and forgotten. You're led out of the storage cell by a different guard, this one yawning, as if dragging you through the mud is just another chore on his list between feeding pigs and mending boots. He doesn't say much, just shoves you into a corridor and nods toward a bench outside the magistrate's hall. Sit. Don't speak unless spoken to. You sit, not because you want to, but because your legs are still sore from yesterday's chase and your ribs still ache from where they kicked you. The bench is damp. You don't care. You're too tired to care. A child walks past holding a basket of turnips. She glances at you, then looks away quickly, as if your shame might be contagious. You almost laugh. But then you hear them, the others. Small footsteps, scuffling, hushed voices behind the stone well. You lean forward slightly and catch sight of a group of children. 4 of them, maybe 5. Dirty clothes, shoeless feet, quick eyes. One of them is prying open a cellar grate with a rusted hook. They're like shadows, fast, deliberate, no wasted motion. You know this type. Gutter gangs. Children with no homes, no parents, no safety nets. Raised by alleys and taught by hunger. The youngest can't be more than 6. She keeps lookout, humming under her breath like it's a game. When the grate creaks open, the others slip inside one by one like rats returning to their burrow. You don't know what's down there. Food, maybe, or a dry place to sleep. But you know how this works. They steal, they run, and sometimes they get caught. One of them was caught last week. They brought him into the square, just a boy, tied him to the whipping post and made the others watch, called it a lesson. The crowd was quiet that day. Not from sympathy, from discomfort. Watching a child bleed makes even the cruelest hearts twitch. Scholars remain divided on how prevalent child thieves were in medieval cities. Some say they were used as tools by adult gangs. Others argue that they operated independently, forming their own codes and systems of survival. You've seen both. Today's children don't belong to anyone, but they answer to each other. You once met a girl named Wren. She was fast, faster than anyone you'd seen, could lift a coin purse from a monk's belt without disturbing the prayer beads. She ran with a pack of other orphans, said she preferred life on the rooftops. No mud, no merchants, just sky and pigeons. She disappeared one winter. You don't ask what happened. You already know. The magistrate's clerk appears holding a scroll. He eyes you like he's sniffing spoiled meat. "Come," he says. Voice flat. You follow. Inside the magistrate's hall is warm and smells of wood polish and damp wool. A fire crackles. You can barely feel your fingers, but you keep them at your sides. The magistrate looks at you over a stack of parchment. He's not interested in your story. Not really. He just wants to move you from one column to another: accused, confessed, punished. Neatly done. Do you deny the theft, he asks. I didn't steal anything you say. He sighs, clearly disappointed that you haven't made this easy for him. A woman leans over and whispers something in his ear. Probably the grey-cloaked one. Or someone worse. He nods. We've had several reports of your presence at various crime scenes, he says, as if presence is the same as guilt. Theft of food, interference with market stalls, suspicious behaviour near noble residences. Suspicious behaviour. That could mean anything, or nothing. You've refused to confess, he continues. But the pattern is clear. He pauses, looks down at a parchment. Then he says something that sends a chill through your already frozen spine. There's also talk of unnatural silence, of you being seen where others were not, vanishing too quickly, whispering when no one is near. Your mouth goes dry. They say you move like a shadow, like a shade. His tone flattens. Some wonder if it's thievery, or something darker. There it is. Witch, ghost, something other. You want to shout, I'm just a person. But you don't, because that doesn't matter anymore. Experts still debate whether the fear of supernatural abilities was used as a control tactic or genuine belief. You no longer care. You just know the line between thief and other is blurry and dangerously easy to cross when the town needs a scapegoat. The magistrate drums his fingers on the bench. No branding today, he mutters almost to himself. Too many crowds expected for the festival. Perhaps a public confession and release with watch. He looks at you again. Unless you give me reason to recommend something harsher, you meet his eyes, and somehow you smile, because outside those children are still in that cellar, and you know that even if you don't walk free, the town has more ghosts in its walls than it can chase. Later that day, after more paper shuffling and cold stares, they let you go. No formal ruling, no fine, no branding. Just a grunt from the clerk and a guard's boot nudging you toward the door. Not innocent, mind you. Just not worth the trouble. The street hits you like a slap windy bright, too loud. You haven't seen this much sunlight in days. The sky is smeared with clouds, and someone's shouting about eels in the market, but it's the same old town, same wet cobblestones, same people pretending not to see each other. You blend in, because blending in is survival. The guard who releases you mutters something about watching your step. You nod like a good dog and limp away. They didn't heal what they bruised, but they gave you back your cloak and your knife. Small victories. You head toward the edge of town, not to escape, not yet, just to breathe. But that's when you see it, the merchant's trap. He's rich, of course. Heavy rings on his fingers, wide velvet sleeves that sweep the dirt when he moves. He's also angry. A young girl, maybe 12, is being hauled by the wrist by one of his lackeys. She's struggling dirty thin. You don't need to ask what she took, he's yelling. Loud enough for the entire square to hear. Thief, little gutter rat. That's my property. You stop. Not because you want to, but because something about this feels wrong. More wrong than usual. You edge closer, pretending to browse apples from a nearby stall. The girl is whimpering. The merchant reaches into his cloak and pulls out a long pin, gold-heavy ceremonial. Not the girl's prize, his trap. He holds it high. Caught her trying to lift this. But here's the thing, you saw that pin in his cloak this morning. Tucked into his belt. You even thought too easy. You're sure she didn't steal it. He planted it, and now he's going to punish her. Publicly, brutally. To make a point. He's a rich man with a temper. That's a dangerous combination. Scholars remain divided on how frequently false accusations were used by the wealthy to reinforce control. But among thieves, the answer is simple often, especially when someone needed to prove a lesson or distract from their own thefts. You feel your fingers twitch. You shouldn't get involved. But the girl's crying now, and the merchant's hand is rising like he means to strike her. So you move, not with a shout, not with fists, just quick steps. You accidentally bump the merchant's shoulder hard enough to make him stumble. The pin clatters to the ground. You grab it before he does. Lovely thing, you say, lightly examining it in your palm. But it's not hers. You had this when you left the tavern this morning. I was sitting behind you. He freezes. The crowd turns. There's something about public confrontation that even the most powerful don't enjoy. He can't hit you. Not now. Not here. So he snarls. You lie. Maybe you shrug. But a liar doesn't return what they stole. You hold the pin out to him. Do they? The tension tightens like a pulled bowstring. For a second you think he'll strike you anyway. But he doesn't. He snatches the pin back, muttering something foul, and jerks his cloak around him like armor. Then he tosses a coin to his lackey and storms off. No apology, no retraction, just ego limping away. The girl is already gone, slipped into the crowd clever as ever. You don't even get to see her face. You walk the opposite direction, just in case. Your heart is pounding. Experts still debate whether intervention in false accusations made any long-term difference, or just painted the intervener as the next target. You're guessing it's the second one. You duck into a tannery alley and crouch behind the firewood stack. You breathe. Once, twice, then again. That was too close. But you did it. You don't save people often. You can't. But today, you did. And no one saw. Not really. Not the way it mattered. That night you find a roof to sleep on. Slanted, mossy, but dry. From up here the town looks almost peaceful. You can't smell the sewage or hear the bickering. Just stars above and shadows below. You think of the girl. You wonder if someone once saved you like that. Maybe. Maybe not. But tonight you're not just a thief. You're a ghost who made the merchant blink. You pull your cloak tighter and let the wind settle in your hair. Just for a moment you feel real. You know better, but you're going to try it anyway. You've heard the whispers, 2 sacks of grain, a silver chalice, and 3 candlesticks sitting unattended inside the vestry behind the chapel. The priest's gone on pilgrimage, and the new curate is too green to notice much. Someone swears they saw him asleep during Mass. Mid-sermon. It's madness. Stealing from the church is different. Not just illegal, blasphemous. It's not just guards who'll be after you, it's superstition, gossip, divine fury. And if that doesn't scare you, the townsfolk will. Even the ones who steal from each other draw the line at robbing God. And yet, those candlesticks could feed you for a month. So here you are just after sunset, crouched beneath the rotting stairs of the chapel, waiting for the choir boys to leave. They do. Eventually, their laughter fades as they turn down the path. The curate stumbles out a minute later, yawning, rubbing his eyes, muttering something about evening prayers, though he's clearly heading straight for the alehouse. You wait until the street is empty, then you move. The side door sticks. You wiggle the latch with a shard of horn you've carved into a key. It slides free with a soft click, and you slip inside. The chapel is colder than outside. Stone walls, drafty windows, the faintest smell of incense and mold. You step carefully between pews, eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through colored glass. You aren't praying, you're scanning. There behind the altar, just as they said, a low cabinet. You try the latch. Locked. Of course it is. But you've learned a thing or two. You fish a pin from your belt and start working the mechanism, hands shaking only slightly. Scholars remain divided on how common church theft actually was in medieval Europe. Some say it was rare and mostly symbolic. Others argue that churches were frequent targets thanks to their wealth and lax security. You're leaning toward the second theory. Click. The cabinet opens. Inside, yes, the candlesticks. Not gold, but polished brass shaped like twisting vines. A sack of barley tied with red twine, and wrapped in linen the silver chalice. Your breath catches. You're about to take it all when you pause, because lying there beside the cup is something else, a loaf of bread. Fresh. Still warm. Not locked up. Just there. Like a quiet offering. You freeze. Is it a trap? Or is it mercy? You take the chalice. You take the candlesticks. But you leave the bread. Not out of guilt. Not out of reverence. But because somehow that bread feels like someone saw you coming. You slip back out into the night, your bundle tied tight and hidden beneath your cloak. You expect to feel triumphant, rich, victorious. But instead you feel watched. Not by people, not even by God. Just something, as if the chapel itself is aware. You hurry back to the river where you know a trader who buys silver and brass, no questions asked. His breath always smells like garlic and damp rope, but his coin's good. He eyes the chalice with raised eyebrows but says nothing. Slides 6 silver pieces into your hand. That's more than you've seen in a year. You pocket them and leave. Later, in the quiet of an abandoned hayloft, you lie awake, unable to sleep, because now you've crossed a line. Not just a wall or a fence or a shutter, but that line, stealing from the poor. That's survival. From the market, common. But from the altar, that changes you. Whether you believe in heaven or not. Experts still debate whether medieval people truly feared divine retribution for theft, or just feared being caught by mortal hands. But your fingers still tingle, and the memory of that untouched bread follows you like a scent you can't wash off. You fall asleep eventually, silver tucked beneath your shirt, the faint image of stained glass dancing behind your eyelids. And in your dreams, you're back in the chapel. Only this time, the cabinet is empty, and the bread is gone. Morning finds you in a new place under the gallows, not hanging thankfully, not yet, but curled in the dirt beneath the wooden frame, tucked between the splintered posts and a pile of old straw someone dumped and forgot. It's surprisingly dry here, and the town hasn't come to life yet, which means you have an hour or two before you need to vanish again. You didn't mean to sleep here. You'd wandered late, chasing dreams of safety that never quite arrived, and when your legs gave out near the execution field, the ground below the scaffold looked too acceptable. Now as the first light breaks through the haze, you roll onto your side and see them, the feet, 2 pairs dangling. They sway gently in the breeze, toes bare skin turning the color of bad milk. One's a man, the other a boy. You don't know their names. You never do. They're just reminders, markers, like signposts nailed into your mind. You sit up slowly, spine aching. They hanged the man yesterday for horse theft. Everyone saw it. He cursed the sheriff until the noose snapped his voice. Said he only took it to reach his wife before childbirth. They didn't care. Horses are valuable. The boy was hung this morning, you think. Quietly. No crowd. Probably no family either. Word was he stole bread, or maybe a ring, or just looked wrong at the wrong time. You stare at their feet. Then you whisper, not out loud, just in your chest. You could have been me. I could have been you. You crawl out from under the scaffold and dust yourself off. There's no ceremony to it, just another day. Scholars remain divided on whether medieval executions were genuinely about justice or more about spectacle and warning. Some records describe long drawn-out public hangings with cheers and street vendors. Others suggest quick, quiet events for minor crimes. Either way, the result is the same. Dead thieves don't steal again. You wander into the square. It's already buzzing. Vendors setting up stalls, apprentices, sweeping thresholds, pigeons strutting around like they pay rent. No one seems fazed by the two bodies still swinging outside the walls. They're just background. But you feel them. Every footstep you take feels heavier, like your name is being etched into a list you never signed up for. You pass by a tailor's shop where an old man is arguing with his apprentice. Not that stitch boy. The edge has to match the pattern. Look, see how the hem curls. You stop. Because there in the window is a cloak. Simple, dark green, but new, untorn. It pulls at your gaze like gravity. And just above it a sign, custom orders for nobility only. Of course, you don't need a cloak like that. You want one. To not feel like a patchwork of someone else's discards. To pass a guard and not feel their eyes cataloguing your poverty. To look less like prey. You step closer to the window. And that's when you see the reflection someone behind you. You turn fast. It's a boy, younger than you, maybe 10. No shoes, shirt too big for his frame. He's staring at the cloak too. You catch his eye. He looks away. Then he speaks without looking at you. Think they'd hang me if I took it. You shrug. Depends who saw. He nods solemn like you've confirmed something he already feared. Wouldn't even fit me, he mutters. Just wanted to know how it felt. He walks off, disappearing into the crowd like smoke. You stay a moment longer watching your own faint reflection in the glass. You try to picture yourself in the cloak. Standing upright. Not hiding. Not running. It's impossible. You turn and leave. Later, back in the alley behind the smithy, you see something that stops your heart cold. Rope. Coiled neatly. Tied to a beam. A fresh noose. Someone setting up for another hanging. Already. No trial announced. No names shouted in the square. Just rope waiting. Experts still debate whether executions in smaller towns followed legal procedures or were carried out by local authority without formal judgment. But you're not reading a book. You're watching someone prepare to end a life. You back away slowly. This is the truth you live in now. Thieves don't just risk punishment. They risk erasure. No names on graves, no markers, no mourning, just air and rope and the silence that follows. You slide into a stable and curl into a corner behind some empty feed sacks. You don't cry. You don't scream. You just sleep. Because tomorrow, you still have to steal something and hope it's not the last thing you touch. When they throw you into the dungeon, it isn't with ceremony. No formal declaration, no scrolls, no fancy robes, just mud on their boots and irritation in their eyes. You didn't even steal anything this time. You just happened to be standing where someone important wanted you not to be. That was enough. So now you're here. Not a cell, not really, more like a hole. They call it the dungeon, but it's a sunken chamber beneath the court hall, carved into old stone and older rot. The walls drip, not from rainwater, but from something older, more sour. There's straw on the floor, but not enough to sleep on. The air is thick, the kind you can taste. And then there's the sound. Drip, drip, drip. Always from somewhere you can't see. Always just enough to keep you awake. There are others here too. Shapes in the gloom. Some whisper. Some cough. One just rocks knees to chest like the dark is closing in and getting louder. You find a corner and curl into it. Every inch of you aches. Your ankle is twisted from the scuffle that got you here. Your lips split. The worst part. You're not even surprised. This isn't new. Just worse. Scholars remain divided on the exact conditions of medieval prisons. Some claim they were rare, used only to hold the accused until trial. Others describe pits like this, infested, cold, suffocating, where prisoners stayed for weeks, months, or longer. You can confirm the latter, firsthand. You try not to move much. The straw rustles and something underneath it moves. Could be a rat, Could be worse. You don't want to know. You just press your back against the wall and breathe shallow. There's no light. Just the occasional flicker from a torch behind the barred door, and even that fades fast. You can't see the faces of the others, but you feel them. One of them speaks. You, the one, took the chalice. The voice is rough. Male. Not hostile, just tired. You answer after a pause. Sold it. He laughs. It's not joyful. More like someone remembering what joy used to sound like. Brave, that he mutters. Stupid, too. You don't respond. Another voice joins in closer to your left. A woman by the sound of it. They say they hang anyone takes from the church. Makes it easier. No trial, no mercy. Just the rope. You shift your weight. That's just talk you say, though your voice lacks conviction. No, she replies quietly. That's fear. Same shape. Then silence. You sit there a long time, trying not to fall asleep, trying not to think about what they'll do when they open the door again. Eventually one of the prisoners starts to sing. Softly, low, no real melody. Just a hum that curves into words and slips back out again. You don't know the tune, but it wraps around you like smoke. It's a lullaby maybe, or a prayer, or a confession. It ends suddenly when a guard slams a door above. Footsteps, keys rattling. Someone yells. A scuffle, a thud, then nothing. The song doesn't return. You wake with straw stuck to your face, a rat watching you from across the room, and your ankle swollen like a boiled turnip. Everything is sore. They don't feed you. Not today. They just slide a bucket in. Half full. Not water. Not clean anyway. You sip once. Your stomach lurches, but you keep it down. Later, someone near the door whispers about a tunnel. Says it's behind the stones on the far wall. Says it leads to the river. But no one moves. No one checks. Either they know it's a lie, or they're too tired to hope. You're not sure which is worse. Experts still debate whether medieval jails were ever meant to rehabilitate. But you know they weren't. Not really. They were meant to forget you. That's the cruelest part. Not the cold, not the rats, not even the silence. It's the feeling of being erased. Like the world above has already moved on, and you're just something that slipped between the boards. You lean back, eyes open, and whisper the only promise you've got left. If I get out, I won't come back. But even you don't believe that anymore. The trial is a performance. You know that the moment they drag you into the square, and you see the chairs already arranged, the magistrate's robe freshly pressed, and the crowd gathering like they're early for a puppet show. You're the puppet, of course, strings frayed jaw, slack limbs, tired from days in the dungeon. But you're still expected to dance. They sit you on a low stool in front of the platform. Not even the dignity of standing. That's reserved for people who are still considered human. The magistrate steps forward with a scroll, as long as his arm already unrolling before he speaks. By the authority of the town council, and in the presence of the good people of this community, you tune out for a moment. The speech is the same, always the same. It's meant to sound official, final, weighty, but it's all dressing, like meat on a rotten bone. You scan the crowd instead. There are people here you recognize, a few who've bought stolen goods from you in the past. A man you once helped find his lost dog. A woman whose child you stopped from falling into the stream. None of them speak. You don't blame them. Not really. Scholars remain divided on the nature of public trials in medieval towns. Some records suggest they followed strict procedure, with real evidence, witnesses, and deliberation. Others describe them as little more than crowd-pleasing rituals where guilt was assumed and the sentence already written. You know which version you're standing in. The magistrate clears his throat. You are accused of theft again, repeated and brazen disregard for the laws of this town. This time from a sacred institution, no less. The crowd murmurs at the word sacred. That's the one that sticks. He gestures toward the curate, who's standing stiffly near the steps. Eyes down, arms crossed. He won't look at you. The magistrate goes on. Witnesses claim to have seen you near the vestry. Items were found missing the next day. You've been caught with stolen goods before. You've refused confession. He looks up, directly at you. Do you deny it? You open your mouth. You think about saying yes, about claiming it, making it bold. I did it. I'd do it again. The crowd would gasp. The magistrate would clutch his chest. Someone would write a ballad. You'd hang, but at least the story would be yours. But instead you just say, I didn't take it. Simple. Flat. The magistrate blinks. He wasn't expecting that. You keep going. I've stolen before. I won't lie. But not this time. I left the bread. I left the barley. I only took what I knew I could sell. That chalice. It was gathering dust in a cabinet behind a locked door. No one had touched it in months. You call it sacred, but no one was praying over it. The crowd stirs again. Someone coughs. The magistrate frowns. So you admit the theft. You shrug. I admit survival. That gets a few chuckles. Dry ones. Hollow. But real. You see Alice in the crowd. The woman from the pillory. Her head's no longer shaved, but the hair hasn't fully grown back. She gives you the slightest nod. That's the only support you'll get. The magistrate consults with his clerk, murmuring. You can't hear them, but their expressions say enough. They're not sure what to do with you. You've confessed, sort of, but not the way they wanted. You've made it messy, complicated, human. That's the last thing they need you to be. He straightens. We find the accused guilty of theft from a holy institution. No surprise there. However, in light of mitigating factors, and with the goal of mercy in mind, this is where it gets dangerous. You are hereby sentenced to 1 week in the pillory. Public shame. A lesson for all. The crowd deflates. Some were hoping for the rope, others for something bloodier. But a week in the stocks is still a spectacle. Your shoulders sag in relief. Not because you'll enjoy it. You've been there before. The bruises, the rot, the thrown slop, it's awful. But it's not fatal. The guards grab you by the arms. This time gentler. Maybe they think the sentence is enough. Maybe they've grown tired of the process. As they lead you away, you look back once. The magistrate has already moved on, unrolling the next scroll. The show must go on. You can't move your arms. They've been pinned in the pillory since sunrise, and already your shoulders burn like fire. Your wrists are raw, and your neck feels like it's holding up a cathedral. The wood is rough. Splinters have worked their way into your skin. You tried to shift once, just a little, and the crowd laughed when you winced. This is day 1. 6 more to go. Someone throws something. A turnip. Not too soft. It hits your ribs and drops into the mud below. You don't flinch. That's the trick. Don't give them a reaction. That's the real punishment, the theatre of it. If you cry, they laugh. If you glare, they jeer. But if you do nothing, sometimes they get bored. Sometimes. The wind changes, and you catch the smell of fish guts from the market lane. You used to hate that smell. Now it's just a sign that you're still breathing. A child walks by and sticks out his tongue at you. His mother laughs and swats his head half-heartedly. Don't stare at the thief, she scolds, while staring harder than anyone. You let your eyes wander. No sudden movements, just slow, patient observation. You spot Agnes, the informant widow, haggling at a bread stall. She doesn't look your way, but you feel her glance flick toward you when she thinks no one's watching. Funny how everyone looks even when they say they won't. Experts still debate whether public shaming was effective in deterring crime or if it simply deepened resentment. You're starting to think it's both. Right now, resentment is all you've got to keep you upright. Around midday, a man walks up and spits near your feet. Not at you exactly, just enough to mark the space. He says nothing. Neither do you. And then, something strange. He drops a crust of bread into the mud by your left boot. You stare at it. It's hard, dry, already soaked at the edge. But it's bread. He walks away. You don't say thank you, not out loud. Later, someone else passes. A merchant's daughter. Finely dressed, perfumed eyes. Like cold rain. She pauses. Do you regret it, she asks, not with malice, but curiosity. You meet her gaze. It's hard with your neck pinned, but you do. Do you regret being warm, you reply. She doesn't answer. Just walks on, expression unreadable. In the evening, the guards check on you. They don't speak. They pour a ladle of water into a tin nailed to the post. It's barely enough to sip. One of them drops a blanket over your shoulders loosely like a cloak. He doesn't meet your eyes. You wonder if he's the same one who bruised your ribs 2 weeks ago. It's hard to keep track. The sun dips behind the roofs, casting the town in orange shadow. Your neck aches, your hands are numb, and your back is crawling with an itch you can't reach. Still, you're alive. You think of the man who was hanged last week. the one who cursed the sheriff with his last breath. You wonder what he would have said stuck in the stocks for 7 days. Would he have sung, cried, screamed you? Do none of those. You just endure. A figure walks past hooded, lean, slow steps, pauses. You recognize her before she speaks. Alice. She leans on her staff now. The one they gave her after the pillory left her with a crooked hip. Her face is calmer than you remember. She says, "Day one's the worst." You nod slightly. The pillory creaks with the movement. She continues. They want to see if they can break your spirit early. If you get through tomorrow, they stop watching so close. She drops something near your foot. Not food, not water. A small stone. It's smooth, carved, marked with a crude circle. Pocket that when they release you. Someone will recognize it. Might get you a safe roof for a night. She walks away. You blink. The stone stares up at you like a secret. Scholars remain divided on whether informal networks of mutual aid existed among the marginalized in medieval towns. Some say yes, built on silent codes and small favors. Others argue the poor had nothing to share. But this feels like proof. The sun is gone now. The moon takes its place, and the street empties slowly, leaving only lanterns and your thoughts. Somewhere a dog howls. You close your eyes and dream of open arms and loose wood. They release you on the 7th morning, with as little ceremony as they locked you in. A guard lifts the latch, mutters something about your smell, and opens the pillory's wooden jaw like it's just another gate. You fall forward, not dramatically, just enough to remind you that your legs have forgotten what freedom feels like. The mud greets your knees. Your arms tingle with pins and fire as blood rushes back into your fingertips. You groan. It's not a noble sound. It's the sound of a body that's been twisted too long in one position and forgotten how to be upright. The guard watches, chewing on something. Don't try anything clever, he says. You're marked now. You don't reply. You're too busy trying to stand. Next time, he adds, we'll skip the stocks. Ah, there it is. The unspoken warning. We're done shaming you. Next time you swing, you limp away, boots caked in grime, knees shaking. You pass the square where a vendor is already setting out apples. He doesn't offer you one. You don't ask. The town looks the same, but now it feels different, like it's been stretched. Like every face you see is etched a little deeper. You realize this is what happens when they can't kill you outright. They let the town do it slowly. By noon you find a corner near the old bread oven, cold, now abandoned. You sink onto a crate and take inventory. Your fingers still work. Your eyes still blink. Your mouth is dry, but your voice returns when you whisper, "I'm still here." And then you remember the stone. You dig it out of your belt pouch. Smooth. Cold. Still marked with the crude circle Alice carved. You hold it like it's fragile, like it might break the moment someone sees it, or save you. You wander until nightfall, asking no one directly, just showing the stone when you feel safe enough. You get shrugs. One woman squints at it, mutters, "Not mine," and waves you off. But near the weaver's quarter, you hear someone hiss softly, "Show me that again." A man steps forward from a doorway. Younger than you expected. Wears a black scarf. His eyes dart like a sparrow's. You open your palm. He nods. "Come," he says. You hesitate. He doesn't wait, just ducks into a side alley. You follow. Scholars remain divided on the existence of invisible cities, those informal networks of outlaws, beggars, and rogues who protected each other under the surface of official town life. Tonight you walk the path of a ghost. Through one. The alley leads to a cellar door. It opens with a groan. Inside is warmth. Not much, but real. A cook fire. A blanket. A woman humming while stitching someone's ripped cloak. No one asks your name. They feed you broth. Hand you a strip of salted meat. A square of bread softer than you've tasted in weeks. No one looks at you like a criminal. No one asks what you did. Only one rule. No stealing here. You nod. You wouldn't dare. That night you sleep under wool that smells faintly of nettle soap. You curl against the stone wall and let your limbs rest where they want. Your muscles twitch. Your spine complains. But sleep finds you anyway. In the dark, you dream of things you'd forgotten. A fire that doesn't flicker out, a door that opens when you knock, hands that offer instead of strike. And somewhere in that dream you hear Alice's voice again. They stop watching so close. You smile, because they did. And while they looked away, you found something they never meant for you to have. A chance. You don't stay long. The safe house beneath the Weaver's Quarter is a gift, but it's also fragile, like a secret whispered in a storm. You can feel it in the way no one speaks above a murmur, how no one sleeps fully, how every creak in the rafters draws eyes to the door. It's shelter, not a home. You leave at dawn, not because they ask you to, but because you know better. Places like that aren't meant for long stays. The longer you linger, the more you risk drawing heat. And besides, you're not the only one who needs refuge. You slip out through the back, nodding once to the man with the black scarf. He doesn't reply, just pulls the door shut behind you and melts into shadow. You walk light this morning, not just because your bruises still ache, but because the street feels different. The pillory marked you. You see it now. People look at you differently. Not like a rat to be chased, but like a warning. They saw you locked up. They saw you humiliated. That makes you both memorable and radioactive. You're not a thief anymore. You're that thief. The one in the square. The one who didn't flinch. Which makes you dangerous. Or useful. By midday you find a new alley near the butcher's. Not for hiding, just observing. There's always action there, always something moving. Today it's a crowd, shouting, not angry, just loud. You push closer and spot the reason a man on a crate, red-faced, shouting about justice. Street rats everywhere, he yells. Thieves in our markets, in our churches, in our homes. What will it take before we clean our walls? He holds up a boot. A child's boot. Too small for him. Muddy. Torn. He claims it was found in his chicken coop. This, he roars, was left behind by a gutter thief. The crowd eats it up. You know what this is. It's not about a boot. It's about anger, fear, the need to punish someone for everything that's going wrong. Bad harvests, high taxes, missing eggs, cold nights. And who better than someone who can't fight back? Scholars remain divided on whether crowd justice was driven by real threat or manufactured hysteria. You don't. You know. Because today, you watch as the crowd decides, not in court, not in robes, but right here in the dirt. A child is pulled forward, not the one who lost the boot. Just a boy, filthy, wide-eyed. You don't know his name. They shove him toward the crate, and the mob moves. You can't help yourself. You step forward. Wait. It's not a shout exactly. Just loud enough. Heads turn. You don't know what your plan is. You only know you've seen this before. And if you watch again and do nothing, something in you will turn to stone. You hold up your hands. I took it. You say it fast. Loud. The crowd quiets. Someone scoffs. What? You nod toward the boot. I took the chickens. That boot mine. Lost it running. The boys got nothing to do with it. It's a lie. Of course it is. But they hesitate. Because they know you. They remember you. You've been in the pillory. You've already been punished. You look like someone who would steal. You've trained them to believe it. The boy stares at you. You don't meet his eyes. Someone in the crowd mutters, "He's marked. Let the watch deal with it." And just like that, the storm passes. The crowd breaks up. The man on the crate huffs and tosses the boot aside. The boy disappears. Like smoke. You walk away slowly. No one stops you, but you feel it. They'll be watching again now. You just raised your head too high. Later, behind a butcher's cart, someone taps your shoulder. It's the boy. He says nothing. Just presses something into your palm and runs. It's bread. Still warm. You don't eat it right away. You just hold it. Because for once it wasn't stolen. You hear the name first in whispers. Did you hear about Lauren the cut? No, not him. Lauren the gallows hand. That gets your attention. You're crouched behind a broken cartwheel near the blacksmith's yard, waiting for a chance to steal a crust from a worker's meal sack. But when that name is spoken, gallows hand, you freeze. It's not just a title. It's a myth. A ghost story mothers mutter to their sons when they sneak too close to the gallows. They say Lauren was a thief who escaped the rope by tying others' nooses, a man who traded shame for safety, who walked the line between sinner and servant, wielding justice from the wrong side of the law. You always figured he was just a tale. But today, The whispers say he's real, and more than that, he's back. You follow the voices to the old mill lane near the lime pits, a place where gossip clings thick as soot. And there, sitting on a barrel legs crossed, is a man with grey in his beard and a rope scar around his neck. He's talking, quietly, calmly, like someone who doesn't care who hears. They gave me a choice, he says. Dance on air, or tie the rope myself. You watch from the edge of a wall, listening as he tells the tale. He stole once, twice, a dozen times, got caught, twice more. Then the hangman died of pox, and the town had no one to do the job. So they offered it to me, he says. Said I knew how thieves worked. Said I had steady hands. He's missing 2 fingers on one hand. Steady enough, apparently. And so I hung 'em, he continues. Dozens, maybe more. Someone asks. And now he shrugs. Now I clean privies. No one wants the man who hung their cousin at their table. The crowd laughs, but not kindly. He doesn't flinch. Scholars remain divided on whether executioners were truly former criminals. Some records say yes, outlaws turned hangmen to escape death themselves. Others suggest they were trained professionals from grim family lineages. Either way, they were never loved. You watch him for a long time, and then after the crowd thins, you step forward. He sees you before you speak. You're the one from the pillory, he says, matter of fact. You nod. He studies you. You think you're next. You don't answer. You might be. They always circle back. You finally ask, why do it? He snorts. Because living is better than dying. Then he leans in slightly. But don't mistake that for peace. Every time you sleep, your dreams wear the faces of the ones you helped vanish. You believe him. He pulls a cloth bundle from his coat and tosses it at your feet. You unwrap it. Bread, cheese, a silver spoon. You look up. Someone gave me a chance once, he says. Might as well pass it on before I rot. You don't thank him. You just take the bundle and go. That night you sit by the river wall staring at your reflection. The bruises have faded, but your eyes are harder now. Your cheekbones sharper. You don't look like someone who belongs to anything. And yet, you feel connected. To Alice, to the boy who gave you bread, to the man with the rope scar, to the nameless ghosts who taught you to move without sound. This isn't just survival anymore. It's a lineage. You are part of a legacy that doesn't get written in books, but in bruises, in bread crusts, in alley whispers. And maybe that's worth more than mercy. Maybe it's even worth remembering. The story of the noble thief always sounded too good to be true. You've heard it since you were a child. Tales passed between chimney smoke and the clink of wooden cups. Of a man in green or a woman in red or a masked stranger who stole from the rich and gave to the poor. Sometimes it was in Sherwood Forest, other times in the hills above the salt mines. Always clever, always brave, always righteous. You wanted to believe it. You still want to, especially now. You're sitting behind the brewer's barn, wrapped in a borrowed cloak that smells faintly of hops and old fire. In your hand is a crust of bread you didn't steal, a gift, from someone who saw you in the stocks and remembered what pain looks like. And in front of you is a girl no older than 15 with eyes that shine too brightly for someone who's lived this hard. She says her name is Raina. She says she's starting a crew, not a gang, not like the ones that demand coins from chimney sweeps and toss stones at old women. A crew. For lifting goods, yes, but only from merchants who cheat, nobles who smuggle grain out while the children starve. She swears her targets deserve it. You arch an eyebrow. You believe in that, you ask. The noble outlaw. She grins. Don't you? You pause. Think of Alice, of the woman who left bread on the altar, of Lauren the gallows hand, of the boy you lied for in the square. I believe in the hungry, you say, and sometimes the hungry get smart. She laughs, not mocking, pleased. Scholars remain divided on whether Robin Hood-type figures ever truly existed. Some argue they were real. Others say they were collective fantasies, symbols of resistance, not people. But out here among shadows and cold dirt floors, you start to understand the truth doesn't need to be real to be useful. You ask Raina what her plan is. She shrugs. We find where the bailiff keeps his winter stores, the ones marked for emergencies that never seem to arrive when the frost comes. We take a little. We leave a message. Nothing fancy. Just fair. You consider this. Then you nod. She tells you the details. Where the windows are soft. Which guards drink too much. Who to watch for. It's not perfect, but it's better than aimlessness. Better than waiting for the rope again. That night you walk past the chapel where you once slipped in to steal a chalice. The door is locked now. Stronger hinge, better bolt. You don't try it. You keep walking. The town is quiet, sleepy. The moonlight falls across the rooftops like spilled milk. You find Raina waiting where she said she'd be beneath the old windmill bundled in a dark cloak. Beside her is a boy you've never seen. Small, fast-looking, holding a slingshot carved from polished bone. 3 of us, you whisper. She smirks. 3's enough. You slip through the garden gate, past the stables. Through a cellar door she definitely didn't learn to unlock from any priest. Inside the air is thick with grain dust. Sacks everywhere. More than the town could ever need. Raina points to the ones marked with red paint, the symbol for emergency stores. You take 1. Only 1. Just enough to prove a point. Before you leave, she scrawls something on the wall with a lump of charcoal. Not words. Just a shape. A circle with a line through it. Means you were seen, she explains. When you get back to the edge of town, you're sweating. Not from the weight of the sack, but from the thrill. From the purpose. You hand the sack to an old man Raina knows. His granddaughter hasn't eaten properly in 3 days. He thanks you with a nod and vanishes into his shack. That's it. No applause. No songs. Just survival. But it feels different this time. Like something shifted. Not much. Not enough to change the world. But enough to stand a little straighter when you walk. Maybe the noble thief never existed. Maybe it doesn't matter. Because tonight you did something noble. And for the first time in a long while, you don't feel like a shadow. You feel like a spark. The next few days pass in whispers. You're not mentioned by name, but you hear the story floating through the alleyways and bread queues tucked between muttered gossip and spoonfuls of broth. Someone broke into the magistrate's winter storehouse. Someone took only 1 sack. Someone left behind a chalk mark, strange and silent. The town is buzzing, but not in fear. In hope. Some think it was a spirit. Others claim it's the return of a saint or some ancient forest god come to punish the greedy. A few say it's thieves playing at heroism. But no one's angry. Not the poor, at least. They're watching the rooftops again, eyes wide. Looking up, not down. You slip through the streets unnoticed. Not because no one sees you, but because they're starting to look the other way. Some on purpose. Some in quiet gratitude. Raina's crew, if you can call it that, has grown by 2. A girl with a sling and sharp eyes. A boy who used to beg by the fish carts. They aren't warriors, but they're ready. They're hungry. And not just for food, for change. Scholars remain divided on whether real social resistance through theft ever succeeded in shifting power balances in medieval towns. Most say no. That law and hierarchy eventually snuff out rebellion root by root. But what they miss, what you understand now, is that even the idea of resistance is enough to stir the ground. It's not about burning castles. It's about being remembered. Tonight, you return to the chapel again. You don't go inside. You just sit nearby, back against the outer wall, watching the stars emerge between clouds. You still feel the weight of the chalice you took, still hear the voices in the dungeon, still see the gallows when you close your eyes. But now they don't feel like chains. They feel like chapters. The wind carries the scent of barley porridge from a nearby window. A dog barks twice. Someone sings drunkenly from the tavern down the road. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, you feel a moment of stillness. Not safety, that doesn't exist for people like you, but stillness. Tomorrow might bring another patrol, another chase, another beating, another rope. But it might not. It might bring another sack, another warm crust. Another child sleeping with a full belly because you moved like a ghost and left something behind. That's enough. That has to be. You lie back on the stone arms folded and watch the stars pulse overhead. Somewhere behind you, a child laughs. Somewhere in town, a baker finds a missing apple replaced with a wildflower. Somewhere far beyond, someone whispers your name with a smile. You are not a myth, but you're becoming a story. And maybe in this town of fear and frost and watchful eyes that's more powerful than anything you could ever steal. And now, as the streets darken and the fires burn low, your footsteps begin to slow. The alleys you once crept through feel softer, the stones less sharp, the corners less cruel. The night no longer hums with danger, but with something quieter, something tired, something peaceful. Your shoulders still ache. Your ribs still remember the stocks. Your hands still carry the memory of stolen crusts and clenched fists, but your heart, it's steady now. Not racing, not fearful, just beating like it always should have. The town fades behind you, brick by brick, shadow by shadow. You walk slower now, not from fear, but from calm. The kind of calm that comes when you've made your mark, however small, however fleeting. When you've moved unseen and still mattered. Up above the stars flicker in their quiet, ancient language. No one names a constellation after a thief, but maybe they should. Maybe the quiet ones, the scrapers, the runners, the vanishing acts deserve their place among the heavens too. You reach the edge of town, settle into the tall grass and lie back. The wind is gentle here. The night is cool, not cold. And for the first time, no one is chasing you. No boots, no ropes, no crowds. Just sleep curling gently at your heels. End of script. Sweet dreams.